Welcome back to the Pivot Point of View podcast, where we dive into stories of horsemen and horsewomen who are committed to bettering themselves and their horses in and out of the saddle. In this two-part episode, I sit down with Mica and Jamie Olson of Jamie Olson Performance Horses and get a little deep dive into their everyday life. In part one, Jamie gets real about the personal and professional struggles that pushed him to make major changes in his health. His honesty, grit, and willingness to pivot will resonate with anyone who's ever hit a wall and had to find a new way forward. Be sure to stick around for part two, where Jamie shares exactly what he did to drop the weight, gain strength, and become a better rider in the process. It's a conversation about resilience, personal accountability, and the connection between rider wellness and performance in the arena. Hey everybody, it is Becky Pearson with Pivot Point of View, and today I'm joined by the dynamic duo of Jamie and Mica Olson of Olson Performance Horses, and they hail from Bloomfield, Nebraska. And I wanted to talk to Jamie and Mica because they have been good supporters of Pivot Point and also have went through some major horse training things and health changes. And so I think it's always good for people to hear from somebody else other than me and Destry. So welcome to the podcast, you guys. We're all snuggled in here in my trailer because we're at a high school rodeo. It is raining outside. It's been kind of a miserable day. Cold, wet. Jamie had the great idea of putting, like when we were little kids, we put bread bags over our feet when we didn't have waterproof shoes. And I took your advice and did that, and it worked well. Yeah. And you did it as well, I think. Yeah, did you do it, Mike?
I did not. I brought my boots.
She was smart and brought muck boots. The rest of us didn't. So, okay, so we are going to dive right in. So Jamie and Mica, I want to know your background in horses. It's my understanding, Jamie, you didn't ride horse when you were a little boy, and your family wasn't into horses. They were more into four-wheelers and
Yeah, we always had horses, but we did not know how to ride a horse.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I was very, very little, like maybe 5, 6 years old, I was riding, being led by my dad down the dirt road. He got the idea that I could ride by myself, and he went to flip the reins over the horse's neck, let go of the horse. I didn't have reins. Horse ran home. I fell off, traumatized. I honestly, I didn't ride when I was young.
Yeah.
And lots of four-wheelers, had a few motorcycles, a lot of tractors.
Yeah. And probably if you had a lot of motorcycles and four-wheelers, you probably had a few wrecks with them.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. I've lived through some wrecks that I probably shouldn't have, but
Yeah.
speed and yeah. Yep.
Silliness.
Youthfulness.
Okay. That's a good way to put it. And Mica, you grew up on a ranch. Did you guys use horses?
Oh yeah. I didn't ride a four-wheeler or anything like that till, God, I might have been 30.
Really?
It was all horseback.
Okay.
Yep.
She's only 29.
And she's only 29, so she still hasn't rode a four-wheeler.
No, I still haven't. No.
All right. So what changed, Jamie? What made you decide horses were?
So in high school, I wanted to do a rodeo event because at the time my stepdad would not let me do any high school sports, which I wasn't real athletic. But so I wanted to do a rodeo event, and my stepdad agreed that I could do saddle broncs because the high school rodeo season in South Dakota was like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and there was a few practice rodeos ahead of time that you could get away to, but he thought it was short and easy and not have to drag a trailer, didn't have a horse capable of doing anything. And so I tried to ride saddle broncs in high school. Keyword tried.
Tried.
Yep. I did not get to know any pickup men on a name-to-name basis.
Never made it that far. You got to taste a little South Dakota dirt.
I got to eat a lot of dirt.
Yeah.
I had a really bad wreck one year at a regional rodeo. I got kicked in the back of the head, a concussion, tore up my arm. Spent the night in the hospital. At any rate, that was a long time ago.
And then you decided, well, maybe it's better to be on a broke horse than on these saddle
I didn't even
broncs?
know what a broke horse was.
Okay, so when did you find out what a broke horse was? You know,
I really don't. So long story short, like I said, I didn't have. I always liked horses. I just didn't have anything. Didn't know that they were actually good for anything.
But then Chris asked you to go
Yep,
to school.
so a friend of mine, neighbor boy, that I actually got to travel with his family to the high school rodeos and stay with them once in a while. He was a very good calf roper and team roper in high school, and probably very much is today yet. But um, he kind of kept me with the idea that we should go to college and go to a horse program, and he talked me into going to college in Rapid City. We went to the equine program at Western Dakota Tech, and yeah, I didn't know nothing. I mean, I took a young horse there and just kind of learned by necessity, I guess.
right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where you got your foundation in horsemanship. Is that what you
Well,
say
I
that?
wouldn't say that because it was college 101.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Okay.
the horses are why we were there, yes,
Mhm.
but there was a lot of college activities.
Okay.
Um, first year, and it actually, and I'm not opposed to saying this. It took me 3 years to do a 2-year program.
Yeah. Well, it took me 14 to get a 7-year degree. So, hey, as long as it happens, right?
Yours
Yeah.
sounds better. You got more out of it.
Well, I don't know about that. So, yeah. Yeah.
No, so yeah, but in the meantime, so my first year I actually college rodeoed also. So I was trying to ride saddle broncs for the college and not on a scholarship, just on basically a walk-on deal.
Mhm.
I got bucked off at a spring rodeo, and I can still remember I landed with my hands behind my back. Anyways,
Mm.
I broke this wrist.
Mm.
Um, Went to the medic table that night. They said, "Oh, it's just a bad sprain. It just wouldn't heal."
Mm.
And later that summer, I was being silly. I tried jumping on a broodmare bareback, and the colts ran off, and I stepped off in the cow trail and I broke my ankle,
Oh,
and I had a broken wrist. So I drove myself to the doctor. Um, I was there at the emergency room. They x-rayed my ankle. They said it's broke. I said, "Oh, by the way, will you x my wrist while I'm here?" And they said, "Well, did that happen at the same time?" I said, "Well, no, but." So I ended up having surgery on my wrist, had a cast on my ankle, all in, that would have been in 95.
in 95. Okay. So when did you guys meet? What year did you two meet?
96.
I was going to say 96
Okay.
because 95 was a mess.
Okay. All right. So Micah came along and
Straightened me right up.
straightened you right up.
Yeah.
Perfect. Where did you guys meet?
Rodeo dance.
Oh, rodeo dance. All right. Okay.
The better of the worst options, I guess.
So you two hit it right off. And Micah, were you in the rodeo or you were there to watch the rodeo or to be at the dance?
It was at my hometown rodeo.
Okay. In White River.
White River.
Okay.
Yep.
South Dakota.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. And then we dated on and off, or pretty much.
Kind of on, more than off.
Yeah, and so then we got married in 98.
Okay.
Yep.
So were you training horses full time at that point?
No.
No. What were you
So
doing?
in 98, well, I had a feedlot job there for a little while, and then I was working for a neighbor guy so back when I went to college, so I actually had finished my 3-year degree or 2-year degree in 3 years. I went to work for a ranch as the horse manager.
Mhm.
I didn't know nothing, and it was a very the ranch was owned by a guy that had a corporation. Obviously, didn't make his money at that time in the ranching industry. So my ideas of ranching and his ideas of ranching didn't really match up. But anyways, I ended up moving home and working for a feedlot, and in a roundabout way. And then there was a neighbor guy there at the feedlot that I got to help start colts with and things like that. And that's I'd have to say my foundation of my horsemanship and desire to get into performance horses were between the team roping was with Chris, the guy that got me to go to college, and then with Frank and Rod up there starting colts and going down that avenue, and that kind of drummed the interest along.
Okay. So when did you get into the cow horse stuff? What were Frank and Rod what were their last names?
Frank Kenzie and Rod Whitney. It was Frank had the training business. Rod was Frank's right hand man, and so he at the time Frank was at the time there was no cow horse. Yeah, in the upper Midwest here. So Frank was the cutting horse trainer and raised colts and rancher. And then we got into the cow horse thing, come to South Dakota and Nebraska area, I want to say in 2000. I think my first horse show in the cow horse was in 2002 or 2003.
Okay.
Was the first year I went to one. Um, and I actually bought my first cow horse. So we were married in 98. We were living in Yankton. After we got married, we moved to Yankton. Um, but anyways, yeah, so then I actually bought my first cow horse from Frank. It was a 3-year-old mare. And yeah, just dumb luck. Just dumb luck.
You got a good one right off the bat to get you hooked?
No, it was tough. I can remember going into the herd work the first time and I marked 61 and I was just happy they didn't take the other point away. I really was. I can still remember coming out of that arena there. But then I ended up, I got dumb luck and I ended up having the high fence score for the weekend.
Oh,
Took it going
wow.
down the fence.
Wow.
Didn't know what I was doing. I
Mhm.
mean, made a lot of wrecks after that.
It was downhill after
Yeah,
that.
it was. It truly was. Yeah.
All right, so that was, you said, about 2003, 2004, something
So
like
we kind of
that.
jumped from 90, late 90s to 2003 because everything was kind of
Mhm.
a blur in there.
Yeah, yeah. You were young and in love and trying to figure things out.
I think it was before then, because Elliot was just a baby. We didn't have Tatum yet.
So, '02.
I think it was actually, yeah, probably.
I don't remember. I guess, like I said, it's
I think so.
been a while.
Yeah. So you've really seen cow horse come the full, you've been with it like from the beginning in Nebraska, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Mhm.
So in Nebraska, actually, what even spurred me into the cow horse, I was at Frank's one day, just riding some colts, and this was before, So I worked in town, and once we bought our place that we're on currently, we bought that in 2000, August of 2000. At any rate, I was starting to take in a few colts to ride in the evenings and whatnot, and or I was up at Frank's, and on the corner of or on the bulletin board there at his barn, he had a little flyer that said something about a cow horse clinic. And it was actually JB and Sonia Atkins were putting on a cow horse clinic in Pierce, Nebraska. And I can remember Frank telling me, he's like, you should go do that. He says, you could get in on the ground floor of this cow horse and it might fit you,
Mm-hmm.
because I was always been, and I'm always, very hands-on, wanting to do more than just one thing,
Mhm.
just those maybe too spontaneous sometimes.
Well, and you have a thirst for knowledge and learning, right?
Well, yeah, I
Mhm.
just can't sit still very long.
Yeah. Well, because Jamie even has been to a barrel racing clinic.
And enjoyed it.
Good, good.
And I'd go again. It's all, nowadays I'm looking at it as the horsemanship side. There's so many elements of crossing over of disciplines or of abilities.
Yeah. And the foundation is having good horsemanship, period. And that's when I talk to a lot of clinicians, they talk about that Yeah, it might be a barrel clinic or it might be a pole bending clinic or, cow horse clinic, whatever. But really, the foundation of it is improving your horsemanship and that communication between you and the horse. And so I think anytime you can improve upon that is always helpful.
Yeah, and and that particular clinic, Sam called me out on it. I mean, and
Mhm.
she seen it correctly. I was, not riding balanced, and I don't mean balanced by weight. I mean just with my hands. And there's so much of that as a human. We're just prone to be out of balance. As balanced as we think we are, we're still probably wrong.
Can I tell you a little secret
Hmm.
about Sam and that day? She goes, I wanted to really get after Jamie that day. So you might have been a little bit of a target that day.
Yeah, that's
I don't know
good.
if you felt that way or not, but
Oh, I tried to
yeah.
lay low. But
Well, she knew that you had the ability to really ride well, so I think she wanted to make
I
sure you
wasn't
got.
riding a real good horse, to be honest. I mean, in my defense, it was really a green horse to exposed to anything. But yeah, I appreciate her taking it easy on me.
Well, we had a good time that day, and I know we had a Burns saddle rep there. We had a great conversation about saddle fit, and so it was good to hear your perspective from a cow horse type cutting background versus the barrel racer type background. And we've talked about it a lot on the podcast how cutters ride really big seats. Now, cow horse people, what do you like? What size seat do you ride in your cow horse
Um,
saddle?
well, that's kind of changed here in the last couple of years, but typically a 16-inch saddle, a cow horse saddle is pretty much a lot of people can ride a 16-inch cow
Mhm.
horse seat. The cow horse seats versus the cutter seats, they got a little more pocket, I guess, or,
Yeah,
or a
kind of
little
a
more.
dish.
Yeah, they got a
They're
little
built
more.
up in the front a little
Yep, they
more.
got a little
Yeah.
more rise to the front of them, and where cutter seats are usually flat. The old style cutters, they used to say they wanted a flatter seat because the guys would actually move around more in their seat.
Hmm.
The new style of riding with, and most, the horses are super athletic, and everybody sits a little tighter.
Hmm. I don't think I'd want to get loose on a good cutting horse. I don't know.
Mm.
I've only rode one time and it was awful looking, but it was fun to do. But yeah, and then we go to the barrel racing side of the world where if you tell Susie that she's in too small of a seat and she's riding a 13-inch seat and she needs a 14 or a 15-inch, you might as well have just told her she had the biggest butt on her.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for people. We have a lot of barrel racers that listen to the podcast. It's important to know that if somebody does recommend maybe a bigger seat, it isn't because your butt is too big, but it's because like what size seat does Callie ride? Their daughter Callie is skinny
She's
mini.
she's riding
Mhm.
a 14-inch, I think, barrel saddle, that
Okay.
trophy saddle deal that she
Yeah.
built. Um, and then I think she's roping out of, or goat tying, roping out of a 14-inch saddle also.
Okay.
And so
Hmm.
But her cow horse.
her cow horse saddle is a 15 and a half, and
Okay. Hmm.
and so I've started riding some 15.5-inch seats
Hmm.
also,
Mine is a 15 and a half.
Okay. Yeah. And
but
you weigh
it's,
like 100 pounds,
well,
So
soaking wet.
but the difference, and
Mhm.
people don't realize this, the difference is the position of the stirrups, right? So like the barrel
Right.
saddles, they kind of, from my perspective, it looks like they want you kind of standing up a little bit more. You're not, you're more, where the cow horse and the cutters, it's more of a sitting down and really, really being able to get your pockets underneath of you. And then as you sit down, and people don't realize this also, but you're not holding on with your knees.
Mhm.
Your balance is to sit on your pockets and your legs curl around your horse. Where in the barrel deal too, it's not necessarily holding on with your knees, but it's the saddles are built that you just
A
kind of
little more up.
stand up a little bit more.
Yeah, a lot of them are, yeah. And then like I ride a more free running horse, so that does not work at all. And he's huge, so that doesn't work well at all for me. So I struggled, and actually my barrel saddle, it is a custom made barrel saddle, but it almost looks a little more like a cow horse saddle. Like it's built up in the front. I got a little pencil roll in the back, but it's got a deeper pocket and I can really get my feet ahead. So I can be kind of back on him and sit down. Because if I get up over him, like I'm going out the front, So um, I want more of a saddle like that on him. So I think it's just a great conversation for people to hear that the different styles and things that you.
But it's just different, like running to a sliding stop is a different body posture, horse and rider, versus running into them barrels. And I'm not an avid barrel racer or understand the true G-force around those barrels, but I've seen some. I mean, there's a lot of power around those really good horses on that corner. The only thing I can relate to that is making a fence run, and like you're going wide open and you read that cow and that horse reads it and everything hits a stop and you turn. We don't have we can't go forward because there's a fence. So everything has to come to a stop and go the other way. I think I imagine that's a lot like the really strong, honest barrel horses.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that. So okay, so now you started showing cutting horses, or excuse me, cow horses.
Yep, back in early 2000s.
Okay, all right, and then some like highlights of your career. What would you say?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm still waiting for the highlight. Well, the biggest highlight might have been my bride. I mean, she's very, very
Yes.
fortunate. She puts up with me here. But like in I could be wrong on my dates here, but I think it was 05 or 07. I had a really good 4-year-old horse I was showing. And I had some early success with him. I went to the AQHA World Show, placed in the top 10, made the finals, placed in the top 10. Showed him in Reno in a Hackamore class. I was reserve in the limited open Hackamore out there. Didn't know anything about riding a Hackamore, or a Hackamore horse versus riding a snaffle bit horse. At that time, I never knew what a bridle horse was. And that was I'd say one of the detriments to my deal was I never worked. I mean, I never truly worked for somebody and got to ride a seasoned or even a trained horse. I mean, I had
You were kind of in no man's land for learning that stuff, probably.
I've been in no man's land my whole career. I mean, it's a great community around there, and but it's for we're kind of out of the horse area.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good people out there, but. So yeah, I mean, and that was like to look back on it, it was so hard. I did all my own horseshoeing, still do all my own horseshoeing. I didn't know what a horse was supposed to feel like to run and stop, to slide. It was it was, if anybody wants to do it the hard way, I did it absolutely the most defeating hard way. So, and then to get that one, and he was a nice horse. And early in my youth, I wish I could try him again.
Because how old would you have been at that point?
So it was, well, I think
It was 2007.
when I went to the World Show, and he was a 4-year-old, I think, that year I went to the AQHA World Show on him.
So 18 years ago. How old are you now?
49.
49. So you would have been 31. Yeah.
30-ish, 31.
Yeah.
And I didn't start, so we bought our place. I was 24, I think, when we bought our place. So I didn't really start training because I got out of the horses for a while. Well, after we got married and we ended up moving into Yankton, I got a job where I punched a time clock and learned how to do that deal. That was tough. Punched the time clock, and then we bought this acreage that we're on now, and things just kind of kept evolving and wanting to get back into it.
And then as your family grew, then you got more into the horses because the kids kind of were also.
Well, yeah, so we got more into the horses. just by craziness, I
Yeah.
think. I really don't know. I can, yeah, it was just what I wanted to do, I guess.
Yeah.
Micah went
Yeah.
along with it.
So when he came and told you he wanted to train horses full time, what did you think of that idea?
Well, the first time he said it to me, we were living in Yankton in our little trailer house. And he said, I want to train cow horses. And I was like, okay.
Whatever he
Well,
said.
I don't know what it is, but okay, sure. And then when he really got serious about quitting his job, I was like, well, we have two little kids.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, well, you have to have all these horses, you have to have so many horses lined up to know that. And he did, and he lined them up, and
Yeah, I had, so she, at the time, I can
yeah,
remember she told me I needed, so at the time, our budget was I needed 6 horses a month at $100 a week to make the money I was making in town.
Oh.
I had 18 head of horses lined up.
Oh, wow.
Every one of them was a 30-day horse.
Oh, wow.
They
Yeah.
all,
Mhm.
and everybody come through. Everybody brought me a horse, and pretty much everybody brought me another horse after that. So now I had 6 months of horses lined
You're like, I don't have to punch a clock for 6 months.
up. Well, it was yeah,
Yeah.
and
Good.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it was crazy,
Yeah.
to look back on it now. I mean, it was like, wow.
Yeah.
when he started riding, though, he was riding for $325 a month.
Oh
Yeah,
my
before I
gosh.
quit my job in town, it was $325 a month.
Now you can't even feed them for that.
No,
And we were paying 25, we would buy bales of hay for $25,
a
a
round
big
bale.
round barrel bale, because we had really good neighbors, and they would sell us one bale at a time.
Because that's what you could afford.
And
Yeah,
Yeah.
and not always could we afford the $25,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there was a few times I'd get mad at Jamie as, did you bring that home? And he's like, what do you want me to do? Feed him dirt? And I'm like, I don't know, but I don't have $25.
Yeah. Yeah.
there were
Yeah.
struggles,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they were real.
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, I thought I wanted to be a horse trainer. And I worked for a phenomenal man in Minnesota. And he was just wonderful. And he looked at me and he says, Becky, stay in college so you can go out and buy whatever horse you want instead of making them. And I am thankful for him for giving me that advice. He also gave me the advice of never have more horses than you can fit in your horse trailer. But he didn't follow that one either. He had like 40 head, but um yeah, he knew it was a hard life. And his wife was always very supportive as well, but she learned to make phenomenal meals out of very little, lots of beans, and just lots of creativity. She always had a must go salad that was everything in it must go from the fridge. So there was no waste. They learned how to get by with very little, and so that was good.
Well, we're very lucky. I mean, Micah is super good at being able to tell me no, and she's really good at saving the little bit that she could every time. And in the big picture of it, it's helped. And I'm really good at taking risks,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think that helps too.
yeah. Well, you balance each other out that way.
Well, but there's days that she won.
But there are days he won.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Good.
not a competition, but I think
No.
she's won more than I have.
But who's keeping score, right?
Yeah, well, we've been in it this long. It's all good, but that is part of the balance of it, and anybody that thinks that this horse training deal looks like fun and it's easy and um yeah, I've seen, and I feel like I'm still the kid getting into it. Now I go to the horse shows and I'm not the kid no more,
Hmm.
and it's kind of hits you pretty hard once in a while, but it's tough. and I would have to say that I've done a lot of things to put groceries on the table, and Mike has too. But after Tatum was born, the daycare bill and the drive to town, and just the all of that stuff. It was for her to work in town. It was kind of counterproductive because
Losing
by the time
money.
you pay the daycare and the gas charges to get to town and whatnot, it was you
Hmm.
know. So she's been lucky to be able to just be home with the boys. Well, then we added Callie to the mix too. But um, in '04, I think Tatum was born in '03, so it was sometime in '04 you were able
Mhm.
to stay home and take care of the boys, and that was a blessing, and
Hmm.
just yeah, to learn how to be everybody being a unit together there,
Right.
and we built everything. We bought an acreage. It had an old house on it. It needed a lot of work. We did a lot of work to it. um I started with just some portable panels holding the horses in it. I'd catch the horses down to the horse trailer, and I'd start my colts in the same pen. I mean, it
Hmm.
was, and now we've got, indoor arenas and outdoor arenas and runs and, and hay shed and just,
Right. Just gradually built as you were able to.
Mhm.
And so now, um, you guys, it's the two of you, and you still have Callie at home. And so, a typical day, how does that look for you guys right now? So, because you saddle a lot of his horses for him,
I
right?
I do a lot of saddling, unsaddling,
Constantly.
bathing. I'll cool down. Sometimes I'll trot them, clean most of the stalls, do a lot that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Yep. So, oh, most of the time now we see Callie off for school, and then we're outside, and Jamie normally does chores, and then I come and clean stalls and start saddling, and he normally does trims or shoes or something in the morning while I'm cleaning stalls, and um then we just start in and we have our list. Most of the days we keep it kind of in a rhythm, the same kind of horses. Every once in a while he'll trade it up on me, and and I'll just ask him which horses he wants, and I'll just keep him saddled, and I get 3 or 4 ahead of him, and then I'll be able to ride one.
Hmm. Hmm.
And sometimes not. Some days I won't be able to, but um
Yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of how it is. I mean, it's, yeah, most of the days, like I said, I try to, I either have to do the horseshoeing first thing in the morning or the last thing in the evening, or at night. And a lot of times at the end of the day, I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But
get it out of the way in the morning. And so Tatum, your middle child, he seems to be wanting to take the horse trainer cowboy route. Would you agree on that? Or
cowboy route,
cowboy route? Okay.
cowboy route. Yep. Very, that kid is very, he has, since he was a very little bitty guy sitting in my big old saddles, he had a posture to him. Like he could sit a horse and like, I mean, it's just, he's, like anybody's got a lot to learn always, but he could always sit a horse
Hmm.
and make it look easy and fun, but yeah, so he horse showed all the way through high school. He actually homeschooled so he could go horse showing more.
Hmm.
Um, and then he went on to college and was on the ranch horse team there at college. I think he won a couple of
Major events.
yeah,
Was
they
it?
won
Yeah.
the college won their major events. The second year he went, actually he was on the college and the rodeo team,
Hmm.
and scholarships for the ranch horse stuff to go along with it. And now he's following his dream of being a cowboy, and he's getting to start some colts for the ranch he's working for, and this time of year the grass is green and the calves are getting branded, so it's the best time of the year
Yeah.
there.
So he's loving life. So with you guys having, knowing that like the horse trainer life is hard, cowboy life is very similar. Did you try to discourage him? Did you encourage him, or just, whatever his heart kind of desires? What advice do you guys give him as parents
Back
with that?
early in his high school time, the horse deal has changed a lot in the last 10 years, but even in the last 5 years, it's been tremendous the amount of change. But so there was a time in there where I was like, man, this kid's smart. I hope it's a hard business. The overhead is just tremendous
Mm-hmm.
to manage the overhead and then to manage customers. And I have a great set of customers. I always have been very blessed with good people, and there's a lot of good people in the world, but um and I did kind of encourage him to pay attention to your bookwork. You don't have to necessarily go to school, but don't, you know, think about it that you can come back and ride two really good horses of your own and not have to ride
Mm-hmm.
12 head or 15 head a day. Um, but then I kind of seen like I said, things have changed so much in the last few years in the performance horse industry. Um, that there's, the added money at the horse shows, the added money at the barrel race. I mean, there's just so much more outward influence into the industry. And Tatum has a good way of sitting, and he would have a good way of teaching if he wanted to do it. But there is a life in the horse training.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I gotta say, in the last 20 years especially, it's gotten, if somebody wants to train horses, I mean, if you want to work and truly work, you don't get to punch the clock and go home. I mean,
At 5, you don't.
yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's 360 days of being on call.
Yeah. Yep.
And I understand there's 5 more days in the year, but there's 5 days in there that somebody else might watch after it for you. But that's about it. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
and so after he got the college, the scholarships and stuff to go to college. I was like, if he wants to do it, he can go anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world and ride,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, but the overhead is just tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it hard to get into it when you're young. I mean, but where there's a will, there's a way.
We did it too,
you were starting colts in
you know,
their own pen.
and we did. I mean, and that's just, I didn't have a tractor. I didn't have a skid loader.
Yeah.
I cleaned the pen with a pitchfork. I mean, it was rough,
Yeah. Yeah.
couldn't afford to have cattle around, first few times we had some buffalo that didn't work out real well with
Fence.
my fence and
His
yeah,
bride.
my wife.
Not a buffalo fan.
We had a couple they liked to play buffalo. They picked on her and she didn't like it.
Yeah, I don't think I'd like that either. Yeah.
We were very close to getting a divorce that day.
Over buffalo.
Over buffalo.
I'm glad you got rid of the buffalo and not Mica.
I gave him the ultimatum. I said, them or me, and I am not coming back until they're gone.
Smart man. He
So
got rid of them.
So we had to eat buffalo meat. And that was not very much fun.
But the buffalo were gone.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
we haven't had any back.
Yeah, well, good. Okay, so we've kind of touched on the highs. Now we're going to touch on the lows.
Oh, we haven't got to all the highs.
Well, share the rest of the highs.
Good. It's all good. No, the highs are we're here.
Yeah.
Really. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're able to we're able to watch our kids grow and we're here. So yeah, I'm just, training wise, career wise, I haven't reached. I still hope there's more highs.
Yeah, you haven't hit the highest of highs, right?
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. You have a lifestyle that you're able to be a part of your kids' lives. And that's how we got to know each other, is here at the high school rodeo. You started being a turnback for my girls in the cutting pen. And we so appreciated your help. Emma just loved to have you kind of help talk her through her cutting time. And so yeah, we really appreciate that. And yeah, we get to be here, and what more can we ask for, to be able to slip away and do this, because not everybody can.
No, and it's a big commitment too.
Yeah.
Especially the way, were set up, for the seasons.
Nebraska high school rodeo is a grueling, it's an endurance race. It's a marathon for sure. And sometimes I think it should change, but it's you don't have to come to all of them for sure. But
But
yeah.
enter more than one event and you'll be at all of them.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So so we about the time we kind of got to know each other better, you had an accident. You broke your leg.
I
Do you
got
want
kicked in the leg. Yep.
to?
One of those freak deals. I was uh I was trying to educate a horse to lead a little bit better. And I was riding a horse and the horse just had enough. She sold up, which was, that's part of the reason why I was trying to educate her, because she would sew up when you were on the ground walking beside her. And anyway, I come around behind just to try to give her a bend and someplace different to go. And she seen me coming and reached out and kicked with both hind feet as I was coming around with a loose rope as I was riding the saddle horse. So yeah, I broke my the little bone, the
The fibula.
fibula, about an inch below my kneecap.
Mm-hmm.
And as I folded up my leg, I caught the other foot in my ankle. Didn't break my ankle, but they could never find out why it really was as painful as it was. But anyway, yeah, I broke my fibula, and that was in August of 22.
Yeah. And Tatum had just left for college.
Yeah, so Tatum had left on the 13th of August, and I broke my leg on the 18th of August.
So your number one help, not
Yeah,
sorry, no, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say no slight to you, but he was
he was there with
he
us all
was
day.
there. Yeah.
Yep, and he was at that time he was starting to start some colts, and he was there always, to
Mhm.
help, moving stuff around, and yep. So he was right there with me all the time.
Yeah. And so your hired hand went off to college, which was hard enough having a child leave for school.
And that one was a little tougher, I will say, as a parent. Um, you know, so our oldest son went through public school, went to 1 year of college, then the
COVID.
2020, COVID hit, and that kind of, and I pushed him out of college, and I don't blame him a bit.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then Tatum was homeschooled, so he went through seventh grade, I believe. He went through seventh grade at public, and then he was homeschooled the rest of the time. So I mean, that's a little tough one because
Yeah.
5 years,
Of him being right there
yeah,
all the
and
time. Yeah.
his school work would take him, till 11:30 every day, and then after that he'd eat lunch and
And come
be
out.
outside
Hmm.
helping, and riding his horses and just there helping. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's like turning on the light switch. He was always there.
Yeah. 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 Yep. Yeah. And then you break your leg and
So then I get to sit around in a golf cart.
yep. And you were not happy.
Hmm.
I remember it fondly.
Yeah, I got the neighbor lady
Mhm.
that was a blessing. She brought us a golf cart because at the time we had a four-wheeler that wouldn't always run, but I couldn't really ride the four-wheeler because I had a broken leg and it was hard to sit on. So we rode the golf cart back and forth. We did have some help there at the barn, and so that they were still exercising horses and able to work horses in the round pen and stuff. So we kept things going. And
Mhm.
oddly enough, the doctor said my leg would heal fine, and it did,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I still was struggled with my balance. My ankle was the longest to heal.
Mhm. Mhm. And then you had a second health
Yeah, so then
issue.
that was August 18th of 22. I broke my leg. August 1st of 23, I was riding a colt, still trying to work on my balance and this colt, I can still remember it. I was circling around down there in my trees, and I was about done, kind of loosening up the reins on her, and she stepped on a branch, and it fluttered out there,
Mm.
and she jumped, and I lost my balance, and I'm sure I caught her with my spurs, and then she flat bucked my butt off.
Mm.
And as I come down, I was in a long position, but I landed on my elbow
Mhm.
straight out, had a straw hat on, didn't put a crease in it, I jammed my shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
hurt my hip and my shoulder from that fall. And that was the start of the shoulder.
The shoulder. Yeah. And when did you actually go get an MRI on it? Was it?
Oh no, not in a hurry.
Yeah, yeah. It was gonna get better, right? And
Well, so
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
so it was supposed to get better. And obviously by then, then we're into the high school rodeos and we're up and down the road every
Mhm.
weekend, and that's where it is. But I just kept thinking it would get better, and it hurt and it hurt and it hurt. And then it was in October sometime. My horse chiropractor was there one evening working on horses, and he had noticed that I wasn't using my arm much. And he says, "Can I look at it?" And he did. And he says, "Hey man, you're about to freeze that shoulder." And I didn't understand what he meant by
Mm-hmm.
freezing that shoulder. So I asked him, what to do about it. And he gave me a few exercises, and by golly, it was helping, and just I started doing them every morning. And sure enough, the wall crawls with your fingertips and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
those things and circling the buckets. Um, it was helping. And then I was feeling pretty good about things, and I decided I was going to start roping. And that's when I started roping again. And then just little things were happening. Like I popped my ribs out,
Mm-hmm.
I rolled my bicep out of its channel,
Mm-hmm.
all from swinging a rope.
Yeah.
Probably
And
not prepared for it. But
yeah. So you kind of hit a low. You were disgusted with yourself, and you knew that if things continued the way they would, you probably weren't going to be able to do your job very well.
yeah, it was starting to hit a low. I
Mhm.
mean, I was starting to struggle with that I wasn't providing what I needed.
Mhm.
I was still putting in the time, but I wasn't getting what I needed.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I just kind of about the same time as I started the, for my chiropractor to have me work on that deal, I was like, um, I better do something, and
Mhm.
I think that same time period I had to go in and get my driver's license. And I stepped on the scale at the driver's license thing there, and I was like, "Whoosh, really?
Hey, that can't be right.
I've never weighed that much in my that I can ever remember, and
Mhm.
like, wow, look there. That's just one thing kind of led to another.
Mhm.
So I quietly decided I was going to make some changes.
Mhm.
And so back to the other thing. So after the deal, when I got bucked off and I jammed up my shoulder, I was taking a lot of Advil,
Mhm.
Tylenol, Advil, mostly Advil,
Mhm.
just to ease the pain. Every morning, every noon, every afternoon.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
How did your gut handle that?
I don't know.
I
I
mean,
didn't care.
fine, you.
It was just part of it.
Okay.
I
Mhm.
ate 3 meals a day and just
Mhm. Mhm.
kind of kept going. I didn't realize all the stomach issues that were probably coming along with that.
Mhm.
And but to get into the shoulder thing, and not just the shoulder, but I couldn't sleep at night because there was never a comfortable spot.
Mhm.
With the shoulder injury, it's just amazing that there's never a comfortable spot.
Mhm.
And I'd wake up in the middle of the night and even in the morning, and I just hurt. My
Mhm.
knees hurt, my feet hurt, my hips hurt, my upper body always hurt.
Mhm.
It was
So
just, yeah, and I didn't tie it all together.
when did you tie it together? When you started actually
After,
feeling better?
yep, after
Mhm.
I decided, so the two main things that I cut out first was canned pop or any pop and beer.
Mhm.
And I don't, I was having 1 or 2 beers a night. Short
Mhm.
time is just kind of common to grab a beer out of the fridge.
Mhm.
And when I cut those off completely, and I can still remember it, um, purposely, like if a neighbor would pull in, an evening to visit or whatever, I would just make it so I couldn't get out. I could be sociable, but I wouldn't be that sociable. And I tried it, and within 2 weeks, I was feeling better. A lot of the pain throughout my whole body was feeling better. And then I also stepped on the scale. I started with a weight, and within the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I was down like 10 pounds.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, but
Only a man can do that.
I was going to say, girls can't do
Girls
that.
can't do that.
but it was but the weight wasn't what drove me
Yeah.
at first.
Right.
The weight, it was how much better I felt.
Mhm.
Then after I got to feeling better, then I mentioned it to Mike. I was like, hey,
Mhm.
I'm doing this adventure or this journey. I called it my journey.
Mhm.
I said, I don't know where it's going to take me.
Mhm.
I don't know what.
That's a wrap on part 1 with Jamie and Mica Olson. If you've ever felt like something needed to change but you didn't know where to start, I hope Jamie's story gave you some insight and inspiration. You won't want to miss part 2 where we dig into the how, the changes that Jamie made in his daily routine, mindset, and body that are helping him ride stronger and feel better than ever. Thanks for listening, and as always, let your health and your discipline be the pivot point to your success.